Panic is expensive, but absolute undeniable desperation? Well, that costs a company $80 billion in a single afternoon. We are watching a $1 trillion monopoly literally burn down its own Nobel-winning science division just to protect an outdated search engine. The executives in charge aren't innovating anymore, they are frantically barricading the doors against a future they do not control. But the greatest trick they ever pulled off wasn't convincing Wall Street they were still winning. It was convincing us that a billion digital hostages actually wanted to be there. Which brings us to the show of smoke and mirrors that Alphabet's PR machine, well, was trying to show off to the public, because Gemini officially crossed the 1 billion monthly active user threshold, and they were celebrating. Sundar Pichai was out there touting it as the fastest growing consumer product in company history. What they achieved in 2.5 years took YouTube 8 years and Gmail over a decade. 63% of you using conversational voice commands, 1 in 5 using real-time camera feeds, 150 million AI-generated images pumped out daily, and 100 million active users ripped straight off of Apple's iOS. Sounds amazing, right? No. That 1 billion figure strictly isolates the standalone Gemini app and web interface. It purposely ignores the 2.5 billion users forced to encounter AI overviews in search and the 1 billion trapped utilizing AI mode. This rapid user acquisition is a smokescreen. It masks a fundamentally deteriorating back-end reality. A captive user base funneled through default operating system integrations does not mean your product is actually good. The 1 billion user metric isn't Gemini winning the technological race. It is empirical evidence of Google brute-forcing distribution to cover up lagging foundational models and an accelerating internal crisis. Step past those superficial user acquisition metrics and you hit a brick wall. Look at the actual state of Google's technological competitiveness. Take Gemini 3.7 Flash. They heavily marketed this thing as an intelligent workhorse, optimized for coding and agentic workflows. But according to the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, it ranks a mediocre 9th overall and a composite score of 569. 9th place. Wow. They are trailing international dark horses like Alibaba's Qwen 3.8 Max, and, well, yeah, they're even behind SpaceX. The data screams the hard truth. Google strategically optimized for cheap, high-volume generation just to service a massive free-tier consumer base. They traded genuine premium intelligence for raw output speed. They actively sacrificed the complex reasoning capabilities required to actually lead in this industry. Look, the clearest leading indicator of a tech company's health is where its apex engineering talent goes. And right now, Google is experiencing a historic, devastating exodus. This talent hemorrhage signals a profound structural dysfunction that you cannot just fix by throwing more money at it. In August 2026, Jeff Dean walked out the door. The legendary chief scientist, employee number 30, the foundational architect of MapReduce, Bigtable, Spanner, and TensorFlow, well, gone after 27 years. And on top of that, they didn't just leave. They bailed to form Discovery Loop, a public benefit corporation focused on automating scientific research, backed by seed funding from Radical Ventures and Koshla Ventures. And you might be asking, why? Because, well, doing genuine scientific research inside Google's frantic, reactive commercialization culture had become completely fucking impossible. Meanwhile, the foundational pillars of Google DeepMind are cracking under the pressure of corporate mandates. John Jumper, the Nobel Prize-winning co-creator of AlphaFold, departed for Anthropic in June 2026. He was followed closely by core co-authors Johannes Adler and Alexander Pritzel. Upon arriving, they rapidly launched Claude Science, a biology workbench that neutralized one of Google's most significant historical advantages overnight. Even DeepMind's visionary founder Demis Hassabis stepped back into a chairman role, while his laboratory's original mission was systematically dismantled to prop up Gemini. This talent drain has resulted in severe product casualties. The dedicated research team behind the Nobel-winning AlphaFold project has been entirely dismantled. Roughly 25% of the original authors left completely. The rest were shoved into generic Gemini LLM tasks, internal coding initiatives, or spun out to isomorphic labs. This reorganization is the formal death of DeepMind's prestigious Grand Challenge era. It is a pathetic capitulation where scientific AI is sacrificed to fuel consumer-facing chatbot wars. And their product roadmap is an absolute fucking dumpster fire. Gemini 3.5 Pro was delayed into July due to failing internal benchmarks for coding and reasoning. Panicked executives shelved it entirely, and instead they decided to rushed towards version 4.0 in a desperate bid to catch up to Anthropic and OpenAI. Behind that carefully curated 1 billion user veneer lies a decade of internal civil wars, an $80 billion cash furnace, and a defensive strategy of forced adoption. To put it simply, Google translates its technical deficits into pure user punishment through the underlying economics of LLM architecture. Transformer-based models suffer from quadratic scaling. When the context window grows, the memory and processing power required doesn't just increase, it explodes exponentially. Google advertises a 1 million token context window for Gemini, but running massive payloads for complex developer tasks at scale is fundamentally too expensive for their current hardware. Because Alphabet failed to achieve the architectural efficiencies of leaner rivals, they are absorbing catastrophic compute costs. Instead of solving the root algorithmic bottlenecks, they manage this financial bleed by quietly and aggressively throttling the professionals who actually pay for the premium service. If you're an enterprise client, a software engineer, or a power user relying on the Gemini API, Google AI Studio, or the Anti-Gravity IDE, your ecosystem is completely and utterly fucked. Google covertly abandoned predictable monthly API token quotas for a highly volatile, dynamic compute-based rolling limit. Run heavy multi-step agentic prompts, and you can burn through your unstated allocation in minutes. Cross that invisible threshold, and the system triggers a 5-hour rolling lockout, entirely paralyzing your workflow. During these lockouts, you're unceremoniously downgraded to inferior flashlight models, making serious coding projects impossible. Even worse, severe backend synchronization failures result in bugs that hit developers with arbitrary 7-day cooldowns. Google is treating its premium developer base as a real-time load balancing mechanism. They are secretly downgrading workflows and slamming users with lockouts simply because their infrastructure cannot handle the heat. And the sad thing is, this profound desperation to offset multi-billion-dollar corporate costs strikes at the very lifeblood of Google's media empire, YouTube creators. To artificially inflate engagement metrics, Google introduced Ask YouTube, an AI interface that synthesizes answers from long-form videos with text summaries and time-stamped clips. Marketed as an innovative tool to bypass search friction, Ask YouTube is fundamentally designed to strip mine creator content. By extracting the exact answer, the AI bypasses the need to watch the video entirely. This directly cannibalizes watch time, engagement, and ad revenue that independent creators rely on to survive. If a tutorial is summarized in 3 bullet points by Gemini, that creator receives $0 in compensation, despite their intellectual property serving as the vital training data. There is no ad revenue sharing model. It is a parasitic paradox. If creators stop producing high-quality content because they are broke, the AI model will lack the fresh datasets required to generate future answers. Alphabet is building its empire of convenience by extracting uncompensated labor from the creator economy. You look at these 1 billion captive users and you realize that, well, they're not paying customers. Mandatory integration does not equal market preference. Consumers and enterprise clients are not independently choosing Gemini over Claude Opus 5 or GPT 5.6 Terra based on merit. Google is force-feeding AI overviews, Ask YouTube, and Gemini default assistants into search, Android, and workspace environments because they have absolutely no other viable mechanism to guarantee mass adoption for a technologically inferior product. This is the forced adoption illusion. It is a historical distribution monopoly masquerading as genuine product market fit. Owning Android, Chrome, and search allows Google to mandate Gemini's presence across billions of digital lives. But sheer distribution establishes ubiquity, not durable engagement or genuine technological supremacy. So how did a monolithic entity with near infinite resources arrive at a state of panic reactive catch-up? Well, the mess traces back to the 2014 acquisition of DeepMind. That move triggered a systematic civil war that fractured research, duplicated billions in expenditures, and catalyzed a paralyzing ideological divide. For 10 years, Alphabet suffered a profound corporate identity crisis. On one side, the purists, Demis Hassabis and DeepMind, uncompromising in the pursuit of AGI through reinforcement learning, yielding spectacular breakthroughs like AlphaGo and AlphaFold. On the other side, the executives, CEO Sundar Pichai and the core team demanding mass market commercial products to defend the trillion-dollar search and cloud monopolies. Former senior employees have stated Pichai fundamentally does not believe in AGI. He views AI merely as a prosaic utility to maintain market share. This ideological dissonance developed into active internal sabotage. A paranoid, ad-obsessant executive class terrified of neural networks would cannibalize search and actively block their own pioneers. Elite research divisions operated in hostile silos, hoarding projects to prevent internal poaching. This toxic 10-year turf war allowed agile competitors to seize the high ground. The 2023 forced merger of Google Brain and DeepMind wasn't a strategic masterstroke. It was a desperate 11th hour triage. By dismantling the AlphaFold team and hemorrhaging visionary talent, Google officially surrendered its AGI dreams just to optimize for a 9th place chatbot. Failing to lead in architectural model efficiency, Google deployed the only strategic advantage it actually has left: capital. In June 2026, Alphabet announced an $80 billion equity financing plan to fund its escalating AI infrastructure. This included $30 billion in underwritten public offerings, a $40 billion at-the-market program, and a $10 billion private placement to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. This wasn't a strategic partnership. It was a desperate, humiliating act of survival. Alphabet mortgaged its digital soul, offering bargain bin discounts to legacy investors just to keep the lights on in its AI cash furnace. They earmarked this money to support a projected capital expenditure budget that increased to a staggering $180 to $190 billion for the 2026 fiscal year alone. While Alphabet takes out a massive second mortgage to build data centers, the broader tech sector undergoes brutal contractions, with legacy competitors like Oracle executing mass layoffs. Alphabet's willingness to heavily dilute equity and take on over $85 billion in new debt reveals a terrifying reality. Maintaining relevance in AI requires capital expenditures eclipsing the GDP of small nations. The tech industry is gripped by the narrative that AI development simply requires more compute, that the path to AGI is just a linear function of scaling data centers. Google leans heavily into this myth to justify its $80 billion cash furnace to increasingly skeptical shareholders. But throwing tens of billions of dollars at hardware cannot fix a flawed internal culture and a lagging model architecture. Empirical data explicitly refutes the compute myth. Gemini 3.7 Flash generates tokens at a class-leading 340 tokens per second, proving Google possesses immense raw compute power. Compute scaling yields rapidly diminishing returns when the fundamental algorithmic architecture is broken. That $10 billion Berkshire Hathaway investment is not an endorsement of AI supremacy, it is a classic utility play. They view Alphabet's infrastructure as an inescapable digital toll road. They are betting on the monopoly of distribution, not the brilliance of Gemini. But if you want to know where this reality is heading, look at the counter-revolution. Power users, privacy advocates, and enterprise developers are exhausted. They are completely done with the 5-hour lockouts, the arbitrary API pricing, the 7-day cooldown bugs, and the draconian terms of service. And they are actively fighting back. We are watching a massive accelerating exodus towards self-hosted local LLMs, utilizing frameworks like Ollama, LM Studio, and open-weight models. By migrating inference to local silicon, developers are completely bypassing the cloud cache furnace. They're severing their reliance on Google's fragile, heavily throttled ecosystem. The open source community is continually proving that highly optimized, smaller models can rival the utility of bloated, cloud-locked behemoths without the exorbitant recurring rent or the massive privacy compromises. And that decentralized movement doesn't just threaten Google's market share, it threatens the very foundation of their $80 billion gamble. Which is exactly why you need to click on this video right here, right now, to see how Mark Zuckerberg is weaponizing this exact same open source movement in a $145 billion scorched earth war to starve his competitors. Or you can just get the fuck out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.